Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to leave an uncommon life? Well, we've got a great match for you. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. And we've got a great show. It was awesome because I think it was meant to be. In fact, these two were matched up, not on Match.com, but
Not,
through a
no,
different.
yeah,
Nope.
not on dudesfordudes.com or anything.
We were talking about that before the show started.
I almost lost
And
track of time.
that led us right into this moment, and I started to laugh so hard I was tearing up a little bit. But we've got an amazing show. If you haven't joined us on Facebook, a tribe of giants. It's a great community of people where we can support each other. And then YouTube, if you want to go to YouTube, find us on YouTube under Wake Up with Giants TV. Hit the subscribe button, and then hit that little bell, the alert button, so you know when we go live every single dang time. And man, we're getting close to the end of the year. We got a lot of things changing, a lot of things happening. We've got all kinds of stuff happening in January. We're going to be all over the West anyway. We're not going all over the world, but we're all over the West.
All over the map.
Yeah, crisscrossing all the way across the West.
All the way across Salt Lake County. Yeah. Just zoom in really good. We're all over that map.
Looks busy. Nick, what do we got going on?
So in January, we have our live event. We're going to do it by Zoom so that people can join all over the world. And it's going to be a 12 Journeys training that we'll do on a Wednesday. So it'll be early enough that our friends from the UK and Australia, New Zealand, South Africa can join us. And then the 20th and 21st will be in Arizona. And then we'll be back up here in a small town in Utah called Vernal on the 26th, I believe. February, we're doing a training for doTERRA. So we're just stacking up for the year. So if you need us to come to your company or train your people, let us know. We're good at it.
And fun. You can find us on Match. No, just kidding.
On Match.com. Yeah, don't look for us there.
Yeah.
No. Let's dive in. We got a great guest today.
Sweet. Will you ready to do
that?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right,
we got my oils on.
Yeah, there you go. Terry Tucker joining us from Denver. He's a motivational speaker, author, international podcast guest on the topics of motivation, mindset, and self-development. He has a business administration degree. That's a mouthful right there, from the Citadel, where he played NCAA Division I college basketball. He has a master's degree from Boston University. In his professional career, Terry has been marketing executive, a hospital administrator, a SWAT team hostage negotiator, a high school basketball coach.
Which sometimes being a hostage negotiator would help in a basketball or a school.
Well, I see that working in high school too, right? Business owner, motivational speaker, and for the past 10 years, a cancer warrior, which resulted in the amputation of his foot in 2018 and his leg in 2020. So he's the author of the book, Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life, and the developer of the Sustainable Excellence membership. Terry's also been featured in Authority, Thrive Global, and Human Capital Leadership magazines. So welcome to the show.
And Wake Up with Giants TV.
And Wake Up with Giants TV.
He's like, this isn't how you should do a podcast.
Well, Nick, Ryan, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you both today.
You're welcome. I know there's just going to be tons of wisdom that's going to come from you. So, as we dive into where you're at right now in your life, as you reflect back, there was some point that you had an awakening moment. You had lived a life that was to some degree unconscious. It was automatic. It was habitual. And something happened that caused you to shift directions. Can you speak to that? Is there a moment that you can recall?
Yeah, when I found out I had cancer, I was a girls' high school basketball coach. I had my business on the side, or I had my business and I was coaching on the side, however you want to look at that.
Yeah.
And I had a callus break open on the bottom of my foot. And I didn't think much of it because as a coach, you're on your feet a lot. But after a few weeks of it not healing, I made an appointment and went to see a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine. And he took an x-ray and he said, Terry, I think you have a little cyst in there and I can cut it out. And he did. And he showed it to me. It was just a little gelatin sac with some white fat in it, no dark spots, no blood, nothing that gave either one of us concern. But fortunately or unfortunately, he sent it off to pathology to have it looked at. And 2 weeks later, I got the call from him. And as I mentioned, he was a friend. And the more difficulty he was having explaining to me what was going on, the more frightened I was becoming, until finally he laid it out for me. He said, Terry, been a doctor for 25 years. I have never seen this form of cancer. You have an incredibly rare form of melanoma. And because my cancer was so rare, he recommended I go to MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston and be treated. And that's this almost 11-year odyssey now through the disgustingly ugly world of cancer.
Oh man. Yeah. As you had that experience, tell me what happened in your mind, your mental state. What happened to you? What did you think about yourselves? Selves? Maybe you have multiple personalities.
I do sometimes. Yeah, my wife will tell you I do that. Yes.
Yes. So, what judgments came up? What did you go through? Some depression? Did you go through anxiety, fear? Can you go through some of that with us?
Yes. Yeah. All of that. I think I went through every stage that we associate with grief. First it was, I can't possibly have cancer. I've done everything right in my life. I've eaten right. I don't abuse drugs or alcohol. I exercise. I go to the doctor every year. And then I got mad. It was like, I have done everything right. How can I possibly have this? And then I sort of bargained with God. Our daughter was in high school at the time. And it was like, hey, look, God, just let me live long enough to see her graduate from high school. Because at the time, melanoma was pretty much a death sentence. They didn't have anything to really treat it. And then I got down for a little while. Yeah. And then I just got to a point where it was like, this sucks, but I'm going to have to embrace that suck. These are the cards that I've been dealt. I don't like these cards at all, but I'm going to have to play them to the absolute best of my ability. And my wife and I were just talking the other day that, she said, when you first were diagnosed, the oncologist pulled me out of the room and said, he's probably not going to live more than 5 years. Do you think he can handle that? And my wife just started laughing. She's like, you have no idea who you're dealing with right now. It was kind of like, yeah, go ahead and see. And it's funny because every year I get a letter from the tumor board at MD Anderson with asking me to circle one of three options. Either I am alive with cancer, I am alive without cancer, or I'm dead. And I'm sticking around long enough because I haven't figured out how to circle.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? I'm dead.
Yeah. So
hold on a second. That's going to take me a minute.
You know what? I'm still here. You told me 5 years. It's now almost 11. So well, I went through all those emotions.
I want to hang on the grief for a minute because you hit on all of the facets of grief. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talks about DABDA, right? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And you literally went through each of those stages. There's this denial, like this can't be happening to me. And then you got mad. And I think a lot of people think that you shouldn't be mad when you're grieving, when you're sad, right? But it is a natural part of grieving.
It is. And, we're great in the United States about, starting down a road toward a goal. And we get to a point where we come up against an impediment. Something gets in our way and blocks us. And we can't get over it or around it or through it. So we quit. But we don't just quit. We now have to blame somebody. Very few people take personal responsibility for their own success and happiness. So when people found out I had cancer, they're like, well, who do you blame? I'm like, what do you mean, who do I blame? So, well, you got to blame somebody. I'm like,
holy cow, yeah, I
don't blame anybody. And then when people find out I have a faith life, they're like, well, you must blame God. And I always joke with them, like, no, I don't think God got up on a Tuesday morning, checked his to-do list and said, hey, Terry Tucker, cancer today.
Terry's way too happy today, right? Let's
exactly. No, Tuck's getting cancer. It's like, no, sorry about that. But you know what? I don't worry about how I got it. I had all 88 genes that doctors either know of or suspect cause all different forms of cancer. I had those tested a couple of years ago, and I have absolutely no mutations in any of my genes, which kind of begs the question, why did I get this disease? nobody can tell me that. So I don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about why I got it. I just know I have it, and I have to try to live my life to the best of my ability with whatever time I have left.
Yeah, let's talk about some wisdom around that. So somebody experiencing any kind of loss, right? Even an ideal, they have something imagined in their mind that they want to reach toward, a goal, a dream, a vision. And it doesn't come true or through in the time frame they have in mind. So they experience a loss around that, a sadness. And you talked about finding a way, right? For you, finding a way includes whatever has to happen, including losing a leg, right? And so what kind of wisdom would you share with somebody that's maybe going through that sadness, that loss of the ideal that you had in mind for your life or your dreams or visions? What would you share with them about continuing forward?
I'll share with you what I call my 4 truths. And they're
Okay.
just one sentence each. I have them on a Post-it note here on my desk. And I call them my truths, but I mean, they're not mine. I don't own them. I don't think you can own a truth, but I call them sort of the bedrock of my soul. They're just a good place, I think, to try to build a quality life off of. And
Okay.
the first one is this: control your mind, or your mind is going to control you. The second one is embrace the pain and the difficulty that we all experience in life, and use that pain and difficulty to make you a stronger and more resilient individual. The third one, I think, is more of a legacy type of truth, and it's this: what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. And then the last one, I think, is pretty self-explanatory: as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. So I use those truths to decide, am I going to take this therapy, or do I want to get involved in this project and stuff like that? They're just an integral part of who I am, and they work for me. And I guess let me back up and say, I don't purport to have all the answers. It's like, you do these 4 things and you're going to be great no matter what happens. I don't know if you will or not. But if one of these resonate with you, then by all means take it and incorporate it into your life and develop your own truths around what you value in your life.
Yeah. You kind of take the helm, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, life doesn't owe you anything, and nobody's coming to your rescue. You've got to figure out how you can deal with, losing your job. And I always tell people, I try to do this every day of my life. Do one thing every day that scares you, that makes you nervous, that makes you uncomfortable, that's potentially embarrassing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But if you do those small things every day, when the big disasters in life hit us, and they hit all of us, you lose a job, somebody close to you dies, you find out you have a chronic or terminal illness, you'll be so much more resilient to handle those things than those people who kind of sit back and live a casual life, and their dreams, their goals, their ambitions become a casualty of that sort of unplanned living.
Yeah. You'll see me waving at people. It's not telling you to stop.
I just wave back. Hey, Nick.
Quit it. So the loss is going to be a part of it. Pain is going to be a part of it. Struggle is going to be a part of it. But what you interpret around that is what matters most, your mindset around it. Because we're going to experience things that they're events in our life, and they're different for everybody. There's an analogy that I was looking at the other day, and it was, who was it? I think it was Wayne Dyer. He was talking about the wake that we leave behind us, right? And he's like, you're on a boat and you look behind you, and the wake is your history. It's everything that's ever happened in your life. And then you've got to look at is the wake driving the boat? If the wake isn't driving the boat, then who's driving the boat, right? And that comes to the person. And then you look out in front of you, and there's nothing. There's nothing in front of you. So you get to determine the direction of your life. But so many people are living from their wake. So they're looking backward and saying, this is how I'm going to move forward. And they're not really looking at how clear and wide open the future is. And then I found a video the other day of a guy going to work in snow in Norway. And it's like, that's a little ridiculous, because his whole pathway was blocked by snow, like 20 feet of snow. That's a little different. Sometimes you'll have challenges, but you still got to work through it, right?
You do. And your mindset. I played high school basketball in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I played against a guy who played for Bobby Knight. Isaiah Thomas played for Bobby Knight at Indiana, went on and won a couple NBA championships with the Detroit Pistons in the NBA. And so we used to see each other in the summer when we would come back to Chicago. And I said to him, what's it like to play for Bobby Knight? I mean, at the time, he was kind of the premier coach in college basketball. And he said, Knight's a great guy. He said, but he's got this saying that goes, mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. So here's this great coach teaching elite athletes to use their bodies to be great basketball players on the court. But what he's really saying with that quote is that your mind or your mindset is 4 times more important than anything you're ever going to do with your body. We all become what we think. So I always tell people, be very careful what you say to yourself. We all have that self-talk. We all talk to ourselves. It's when you start answering yourself that you got a problem. But that self-talk, be careful with that, because you're going to hardwire your brain. Like if you're taking an algebra class and you're like, you know what, I'm terrible at algebra. I stink at algebra. I'm never going to do good. Eventually you're going to hardwire your brain to the point where, you are bad at algebra. So don't go down that negative road. Go down that positive road. Say good things to yourself, build yourself up, make yourself a better person. And because it all starts in your brain. We all become what we think.
Okay. So there's a part here I want to play with. Going back through development up until the age of about 7, kids are influenced by their parents up until the age of 7. And when they start going to school, they start getting influenced by teachers and peers and everything else. And so they start to become that, right? So the parent has done their part up until that age. And now society starts taking over, and that child becomes more their environment than their parents, right? So moving through development up until about age 25, when we hit our peak of development, we're still out there and we become the sum essentially of our peers. And so when they say you become the 5 people you associate with the most, I mean, truly, you start to take on the mindset of the people around you, and you start to speak like they do. You start to think like they do. And that's where it's been really important for us. Every week we come here and we do the show, and we get to associate with people like you, and throughout the week, others that really like anchor in that mindset. Can you speak to that a little bit? How important is that?
Yeah, my wife and I used to always say that the summers were the time where we should deprogram our daughter from all the bad habits she learned during, the school year, and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. If you've got people in your life, that are smart, that are caring, that are loving, that are supportive, then you're going to be smart and caring and loving and supportive. But if you hang around with people that are nothing but drama or energy suckers from you, then you're going to turn into one of those people. Absolutely. If you've got negative people in your life, and I know this is, we're about ready to go into the holidays, and you're going to be surrounded by people that you sort of have to be surrounded by.
And we're not calling them negative, right?
Yes, exactly. But some of them are, and, you can't not have them in your life because they're your family. But at the same time, I always tell them, try to distance yourself as much as you can from those energy zappers who are taking all the energy out of it, because it's all about them. It's all about drama. And that's the thing. We are all on our unique course, our unique journey, but we're always comparing ourselves. Well, that guy's driving a nicer car, lives in a nicer place, or has a better job, or makes more money.
Yeah.
Well, why can't you just be happy for that person? Why do you have to be, well, I want to be like him, or, I'm jealous of that person? No, you're on your journey. His journey or her journey is their journey, and let them do that and be happy for them. But that goes back to security and integrity and character. And again, those are mindsets that are developed based on the people that you're hanging around with.
Yeah. So character, as the guiding principles of your life, you look at the values, the things that you hold as important. Your character becomes a part of those values. So that's how you interact in the world, whether anybody's watching or not. And then around that, you start to develop your beliefs, and those beliefs are your things that you hold as important, life lessons and whatnot. And then from there, you start speaking and predicting into the world and saying things and acting into the world. So when you create your character, it really doesn't matter who you're around. You can anchor back into that character, right? And that character can go into any environment and be secure in any environment with any person, with any situation, right?
Right.
And it's a practice though, because we tend to go into a stressful situation with what we practice. And then you, that's like,
Yes, you do.
that's the crudes, right? And then we die. Yeah.
And you're absolutely right.
True.
But you think, again, we're coming to the end of the year, so people will start having New Year's resolutions and all that kind of stuff. Why do 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February? I would suggest it's because we start goals, we start resolutions, but they're not anchored to anything. And you just said it. What are your values? What are you willing to die for? What are you willing to give your life to, with the understanding that you may never be successful at that, but it's your passion or your purpose or your why. If you anchor your goals or your beliefs or your New Year's resolutions to your values, you have a better chance of reaching those goals. But I bet if you asked so many people, what are your values? They'd kind of look at you like, I don't know. I've never really thought about that. Well, I think you've got to start there and use that as an anchor, and then start thinking about, well, here are my goals, and here's where I want to go, and here's how I want to develop.
Yeah, it's the expression from you, right? Your world is an expression from who you're being. And so really anchoring into your values is anchoring into what is important to you, right? What is important to me? And so when you know what's important to you, it doesn't have to look like somebody else's things of importance, right? It can be different. But sometimes you find a tribe of people that are aligned with the way that you see the world. And so it anchors it in even more because of the environment that you're in. But truly, I think of explorers. They go out into the world, and the first thing they create in an unknown world is themselves. They have absolute certainty in this before they go out into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I had a nurse recently that when I first met her, I get treated every 3 weeks for the tumors that I still have in my lungs. And she was already a nurse, but she was in training on the unit where I get treated. And a couple months later, she was taking care of me individually. And she said, Terry, I've got a story I want to tell you, but I'm a little uncomfortable telling it to you. And I mean, what do you say to somebody like that? It's like, well, sounds like I might enjoy the story. I hope you get up the courage to tell it to me. A couple hours, she comes back later. She said, all right, here's the deal. She said, when I first met you, I was going to get out of nursing. I had a good friend of mine die. I was in a very dark place. I was talking to my parents. She's about 25 years old. I was talking to my parents, and I was going to quit nursing and go to work for Amazon. And she said, then I met you, and I see the struggles you've gone through. And I went back and I read your story. And she said, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. Now, if she would have never told me that story, I would have had no idea that my life had had a positive impact on her like that. Who out there is looking at, Ryan, Nick, you, whoever, is out there listening to us and saying, gee, I'd give anything just to spend 5 minutes in that person's shoes, just to, we don't know what kind of an influence that we have on other people. And that's why I think it's really important. John Wooden, the basketball coach at UCLA, when I was a kid, had a great saying. It went like this: a careful person I want to be, a little person follows me. I dare not go astray for fear they may go the same way. So be careful how you live your life, because there's always people that you're influencing who would give anything just to walk in your shoes for one day.
Well, let me do this. I mean, look at that. I mean, all this stuff that we think we have around us, a lot of it is just immaterial. It has the appearance of being something, but like on a green, I could throw anything I want up there, right? And so we can put out to the world anything we want. And with social media, it's even easier. We can show our highlight reel. We can show our best sides. But if they came and spent 5 minutes in my shoes, they would want their shoes back, right?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I heard somebody say that, if we all threw our traumas into a bowl and we had to get, we choose any trauma we want out of that bowl, we would take ours back because we know how to handle it, And so I think we get into comparison and we start thinking we're not doing as good as we are. We think we're not doing as good as they are. That's how we start comparing ourselves. And that judgment is what really shuts us down, because then we start to justify and judge ourselves. And that's when learning stops.
Yeah, but think about how we're conditioned. We're conditioned that when we graduate from high school or college or med school or get out of the service, whatever it is, we then start to consume. We're an empty vessel. We need to get stuff. We need to get a job. We need to get money. We need to get a house. We need to get a car. So we start consuming. What if we looked at it differently? Because under that model, we come into the world empty. What if we looked at the model of we come into the world full, and it's our job to empty ourselves out to the betterment of other people?
I like that. Yeah. Can you keep going with that? Dive a little deeper.
I mean, so many, again, it goes back to exactly what you were saying. We compare ourselves to other people. What do you care what somebody else thinks of you? At the end of your life, you're not going to be judged by what other people said or did. You'll be judged by what you said and what you did. So let people be on their own journey. Be happy for those people. Open yourself up to, hey, how can I help you? How can I help you get to your destination, to the end of that rainbow, to the top of the mountain, whatever you want to say? How can I do that? What gifts and talents do I have that I can use to help you, as opposed to what can you give me? What can I get from you? It's just a different way of looking at the world.
Yeah. Ryan, can you pull up Steve Hardison's quote there on his life? No, I love it too, Steve. The one on giving his life or learning from every person he can interact. It's all in bold. I mean, he was yelling basically.
I'm just clicking on every random Steve Hardison comment. There we go.
Right. There we go. So, as a possibility for anybody watching, this is one of many. See how many people I can learn from, love, and serve in one lifetime. Like you said, pouring out as much as you can to another person. I've grown more by not reaching my goals and aspirations, but by helping others to reach theirs. It's beautiful. Like it takes the selfishness out of it on my end, because I'd love to reach my visions and goals and dreams. I've got them out here and I'm working toward them. But man, I find a ton of fulfillment in having a conversation with somebody that's feeling stuck, that's feeling overwhelmed, that's at the end of their rope. They don't know what to do, and we can create a breakthrough. And that's where I find beauty and power.
Absolutely. Again, it's giving of yourself. And, I know people, my wife and I had a kind of her mentor who was a big time guy on Wall Street, had more money than God, had, multiple houses, apartments, and everything like that, and ended up taking his own life. And the money, the power, the prestige, the corner office, all that kind of stuff is great. And there's nothing wrong with being successful and things like that. But are you being significant? Success is what we do for ourselves. Are you successful? But are you being significant? Are you being significant in other people's lives? Are you making a difference? Now, I think you can be both. You can absolutely be successful and be significant in people's lives. But at the end of our life, money, power, prestige, corner office, none of that goes with us. What does, and guys don't like talking about this, but what does is the love that we have in our hearts.
Yeah. I mean, that's powerful right there. I'm going to pull us back in another direction now. If we're going to get off course a little bit, I want to go back to your journey here. I mean, those are the things that are going to carry forward, and those are the things we're trying to anchor into. I want to go back to the struggles, because we're all going to experience some kind of struggle. And if we turn it into suffering, that's internalizing and making it mean something, but we're all going to experience some sort of pain and challenges in life. I mean, this is life. But when you got into the space of being diagnosed with cancer, you lost your foot, then you lost your leg, right? Acceptance, if we talk about acceptance, right, is a challenge for a lot of people, because they think that it's resignation. I have to resign now, right? I can't go after my goals anymore. They think they have to love what is. Jan van Sant talks about acknowledgement, that acceptance is just an acknowledgement of what is. I would love to hear your take on acceptance and acknowledgement. What do you feel about those, and what's your philosophy there?
Yeah, we talk a lot about purpose or passion or why in our lives. And I think a lot of people think that that's a one-shot deal. I have one purpose in life, And what I found in my life is, when I was young, my passion, my purpose was basketball. I ate, drank, slept basketball. But then I got to a point where I had to acknowledge and accept the fact that my basketball career was over. College was over. I had 3 knee surgeries in high school, 1 in college. I was not going to play professionally. So I had to accept that. And what was next in my life? Well, my grandfather was a Chicago police officer from 1924 to 1954. And so I wanted to follow in his footsteps. But my dad remembered the stories about the knock on the door that my grandmother used to tell when my grandfather got shot. And so when I wanted to go in law enforcement, my dad, absolutely not. You're going to go to college. You're going to major in business, get out, get a great job, get married, have 2.4 kids, and live happily ever after. But
I feel bad for that 0.6 child.
Exactly.
Or whatever. Yeah.
But that's what my dad wanted me to do. That wasn't my passion. So my dad was dying of cancer when I graduated from college. So I had 2 choices. I could say, sorry, Dad, I'm going to go blaze my own trail and go into law enforcement. Or out of love and respect for you, I will do what you want me to do. And that's what I did. My first 2 jobs were in business because that's what my dad wanted me to do. But then I sort of joke, I did what every good son did. I waited till my dad passed away, and then I followed my own dreams.
Yeah.
But I had to accept that. You have to accept your circumstances. You don't have to like them, and you certainly want to change them. And now, as I'm probably coming to the end of my life, my goal now is to put as much goodness, as much positivity, as much motivation, as much inspiration, as much love back into the world as I can. So my purpose has changed, and I've had to accept that, acknowledge it, and just try to move forward from where I am today. Kind of like what you were talking about before with the boat and the wake. It's like driving a car. A car shouldn't have rear view mirrors because you don't do anything by looking back. If you learn from your mistakes, you learn from your past, and you keep moving forward, that's what life's all about. The people that keep living in the past, that's not getting them anywhere, and it's not getting people around them to want to hang out with them as well.
Yeah, there's no energy transfer in a wake. All there is evidence that there was energy once there, right? I love that you keep bringing up purpose. And my favorite part of that word is what it means. It's a place of rest. It's a place to pause. In Latin, that's what it means, is to pause. So it's a rest stop. Then if you look at acceptance as a metaphorical X on the map of you are here, that's all you're doing is I'm here. Doesn't mean that you're stuck there, you have to live there or anything else. It's just where you are. And so to acknowledge where you are is very powerful. There's 3 forms of acknowledgement that I like to play with: is acknowledging the past for what it was, acknowledging what is, acknowledging the good that already exists in your life, gratitude. Can you talk to us about gratitude and how that played a role in your life?
Oh, absolutely. I think, and this is going to sound kind of weird, or part of it is, I guess.
Probably not. We say a lot of weird things on this show.
Okay, good.
This is going to sound
I'm
great.
in good company with you guys.
Yeah,
Super.
we're good.
Compared to us, this is going to sound really
you're
normal.
killing it right now. Yeah.
But cancer has, I don't think you know yourself until you've been tested by some form of adversity. And then secondly, I really think cancer has made me a better human being. I certainly appreciated things in my life. I was grateful for what I had. I've had a very, very good life. My story is not one that, as my dad was an alcoholic and he beat my mother and my brothers and I. No, my parents taught us the value of family, of caring for each other, of supporting each other, of loving each other. I mean, I have 2 brothers. I'm 6'8", played basketball in college. I have a brother who's 6'7", who was a pitcher for the University of Notre Dame.
I'm as tall as your knee, man. Like,
pardon me?
I'm as tall as your knee.
Like, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I had another brother who's 6'6", who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then my dad was 6'5". So I sort of joked that if you sat behind our family in church growing up, there wasn't a prayer's chance you were going to see anything, that was going on. But I am incredibly grateful for what our parents gave us, because I was able to do that with our daughter and pass that on. So I've had a great life, despite the fact that for the last 10 years, I've been battling this rare form of cancer. It's made me a better human being.
Yeah. Wow. That acknowledgement right there, this has made me a better human being, is looking for the good in the situation, learning from it, growing from it. And that's possible for everybody. Dorothy Inez brought up the question purpose, as a place to rest. And like you mentioned, you don't have one purpose. None of us have one single purpose. I had a friend that built out a community, 12 million members on YouTube, subscribers, just a huge program, and was depressed because he had accomplished his dream, but now what? And so if that was the sole purpose, then there wasn't any reason for life at that point. And so if you have a singular purpose, just one place, that essentially the way I would say that is, I will not rest until I get to this spot, right? Essentially, that's what we're saying is, I'll take a break here. And I'm not going to release my energy until I get to that point. Creating purposes is a lot like that. You're going to have myriad purposes in your life. One might be to get up and make some coffee. That could be a purpose. I'm not going to rest until I have a coffee in my hand. That's a purpose if we take it down that small. And so that's where I love the idea of just playing with as many purposes as you can in life. Like create Absolutely. As many. Yeah. And serving others, no matter how you go, Terry, regardless of the conversation you're having, your legacy threads back through everything. You can hear it. To give away as much as I can before I die. Right?
Yeah. But that's foreign to the way we're, you turn on the TV and it's like, here, you need this, you're not complete without this. You've got to drive this car. You've got to live in this neighborhood. Do I?
Yeah.
Do I really? I mean, it's kind of like your friend, okay, now I've got the car. Yeah, okay, I got the car. What's next? Yeah. We like your friend, I've got this 12 million person community on YouTube. What's next? What do I do next? What do I feel? And I think that's a lot of being quiet, of being comfortable with yourself. I just finished reading a book called Do Hard Things by a man by the name of Steve Magnus. Magnus was a world-class runner when he was young, and he was the track and field coach at the University of Minnesota. And he talks about this really kind of goofy study. This professor asked for volunteers, and most of them were young people. He put them in a room, totally no windows or anything, just a door. The only thing in the room was a table and a chair. And he wanted you to stay in the room for 15 minutes. The only other thing in the room was a buzzer that was on the table. And if you press the buzzer, you would shock yourself. You would give yourself an electric shock. 67% of the men and 25% of the women shocked themselves, including one man who shocked himself every 5 seconds, which was like, we're not comfortable with who we are. We're not comfortable just being alone with ourselves, allowing our thought to go places.
Like we can't handle being alone.
Yeah. With us, we can't handle. We want to be with others. We want to have devices. We want to have distractions. We can't, we can't be alone with ourselves. And I've always said, and I have a very strong faith line. If God's trying to talk to us, God may not be screaming at us. It may be that little whisper, but if we're so ingrained with everything that's going around us, are we ever going to be able to hear that voice?
Yeah, man, that's to acknowledge that voice, to be able to hear that within us, that's hard, because it's so easy to put judgment out there as though it's external from us, our identity, our control. We put it out here. If this would happen, then I could do something. But none of that, no outside thing is going to change our life. I want to recall this story. I think it was Wayne Dyer was talking about. It was just a recent video, and he was talking about going to the doctor, and you go for a prescription, and the doctor says, I'm going to give this prescription to your mom, and I'm going to give this prescription to your sister, and I'm going to give this prescription to your dad, right? So that you can get better. And that's how we treat our problems is we want to give everybody else something to do so that we can get better. As soon as they do this and take that prescription, then I'll be better. But no, we're the ones that need to do our own healing. And then everything else is an expression from that. Rich Lippman talks about goals being an expression. They come from you. It's what's coming from you, not where you're going. But we've been taught in our society that a goal is where you're going. It's got to be smart, measurable, all that stupid stuff, right? And some researchers are going to get after me for that, but I disagree with it. Now, if we get into it, really, it's an expression of who you're being, right? Your world is a direct reflection of what's going on within you, and who you think you are in relation to the world.
Well, so many people go after like you guys talked about, the external Like, if I had this, then I'll be happy. The truth is like, imagine what it would feel like when you got that thing. Close your eyes, describe it, feel it, and you can start to feel those feelings. It's crazy. You don't even have to have the thing. When you start feeling those feelings, you can be happy now. You can think about, hey, I'd be happy if my kids were around me, if they're in different states or they moved away or something. Well, how do you feel when your kids are around you? Oh man, it's the best feeling ever. I love to hear their voice, blah 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 blah. And they start to feel those feelings. Okay, it's that right there. Hold on to it. Why do you have to wait? You don't have to
Yeah.
wait.
I, I think the greatest compliment our daughter ever gave us was she attended and graduated from the United States Air Force Academy. And one day we were talking to her and she said, Mom and Dad, I'm really glad I have the relationship I do with you because so many kids here hate their parents.
Mm.
And I was just like, I guess we did something right, and have that relationship with her. So, but that was a relationship that was built. It was, you're a parent. You've got to do the hard things. And so many parents today, I want to be friends with my kids because I feel guilty because I spend so much time at the office or at the gym or whatever they're doing. But you're the parent. You're going to make the tough decisions. You're the one who's got to say no. And they go, banging up the stairs and slam the door and say, I hate you. And that's when you say, yeah, I understand that, but I made that decision because I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And it's the assertiveness. Many therapists have clients who struggle with being assertive, right? They don't want to tell what's going on within them. So we suck it in, we hold it in, we get angry, but we don't express it. And that assertiveness this is what I need in this moment right now. I'm going to express it. It really doesn't have anything to do with you. It has to do with the situation and my needs within that situation, right? And to learn to do that with our kids, holy crap, that feels challenging. I won't say it is challenging. It feels challenging, but it's a practice that I personally need. I mean, there's things in my house. I created a chore chart today because I need help with chores. It's like, but I want to co-create it with them because if I just mandate it, they're going to get mad at me and not do anything. They'll rebel. So I want to co-create that with them. But that's being assertive of, this is my need within this space when you guys come over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
when I was young, my parents, there was only two ways to die when I was young: natural causes and talking back to your parents. Those were the only two ways to die when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It's like Ralphie or the Christmas Story, the Christmas
exactly.
movie, right? Like, that's what I thought about right there. He thinks he's dead.
But that was, you respected authority. You respected our parents. I mean, our parents made us, it was yes, ma'am, yes, sir, no, ma'am, no, sir, to any adult that we dealt with.
Yeah.
And you just don't, that's not a part of, it's individualism and, I'm important and you're important. And, I don't care if I'm 12 years old and you're an adult, it's all about me. It's not about you. I always used to tell my player, you're unique, but you're not special. Sorry. Gino Auriemma, the basketball coach at UConn, the women's coach, always tells his players, he's like, I will treat you fairly, but I will not treat you equally because you each have unique, gifts. You're a rebounder. I'm not going to let you go out and take 3-point shots. You can't hit them. So right. I'll treat you fairly, but I'm not going to treat you equally.
Yeah. Man, and discovering our own talents, recognizing what we're good at, what we're not. I can't play basketball. I don't have any desire to learn how to play basketball. Right. But I know where my talents are and I have gifts in certain areas and I don't in other areas. And I have no desire to develop those. So it's a recognition that not only do I not have it, it's not interesting.
Right.
It's not like I couldn't go develop some form of that. Yeah, I can. But I prefer to develop the talents and abilities that I have and express those. Because like you said, that's my unique way of giving back to the world. So can we talk about abundance a little bit? We're about 45 minutes in. We got about 15 minutes to go. And, abundance, I'm going to prime you a bit here, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Wayne Dyer says it's not something that you acquire. It's something you tune into. And when we teach our courses, the 12 journeys, we talk about the limitless nature of the universe, that all of the resources, materials, people that we need are already here. And based on the laws of thermodynamics that say that energy can't be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed from one form to another. Our view on abundance is the idea that everything you need is around you. It just might not be in the form that you need. So it's up to you to transform it. Can you play with that? Do you have a differing view of that when it comes to abundance?
I guess maybe a little bit different, but I
Sure.
totally agree with that. I've always believed that everything we need to be successful in life is already inside us. And we just need to find it and pull it out and use it to our benefit. I mean, we spend so much time, talking to therapists or reading self-help books and doing all this kind of stuff. And everything is external. We're looking for our satisfaction. We're looking for our purpose externally, when we should be looking at it internally. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier about, are you looking at yourself as being empty and needing to fill up, or are you looking at yourself as being full and needing to basically let yourself out, let yourself go in the ability to help other people? Because it was just like you were saying, where do you get satisfaction? Do you get satisfaction from, that 6-figure salary you make, or the BMW you're driving, or the house you live in? Or do you get satisfaction from the relationship with your wife, your kids, your parents, your brothers and sisters, and things like that? For me, it's always been, I said, I've got 2 brothers. They're both in education in Chicago, and they came to visit me in August, and they spent 3 days with us. We never left the house. We never turned the television set on. We spent 3 days just absolutely telling stories and lying to each other and laughing like crazy, and like, you remember this? That's not the way I remember it. It was this way, and
yeah.
You're
going crazy. You're gaslighting each other.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So the people, like, recognizing all the good that's already in your world, it goes back to gratitude, right? It's you already have, like Hugh said, enough in your world, truly. And it doesn't matter what level you're at. You already have enough in your world, and recognize that is the first step. Yeah. And when it gets to the point that it's overflowing, it becomes easier to dish that out to the world too, but it's not a requirement to give back to the world, right?
My brother's the president of Marist High School in Chicago, and the Marist brothers asked him to go to Guatemala and look at the Marist school there, the Marist High School. And he said, I was a little apprehensive, third world country. I didn't know. He said, I got off the airplane, and, there's armed guards with AKs patrolling the concourse and stuff like that. I get into an armed convoy to go to the Marist compound. And he said, then the next day we went up into the mountains and I met with the principal of the Marist High School. And he said to him, he's like, well, how do you handle, fighting and bullying and mental illness and all the things that, we deal with, or, high school kids deal with? And principal looked at him like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with, when kids are fighting with each other, or other kids are bullying each other, or the kids that have mental illness and, imposter syndrome and all that stuff? And the principal looked at him like, we don't have that problem here. That's a first world problem.
It is a first world problem.
Yeah,
yes.
These kids live in dirt huts, floors with no heating and air conditioning. They go to school in the morning and they spend their afternoons in the fields. They realize the only way out of this poverty is an education. And so all the other stuff, we don't deal with that. And it's kind of like you said, think of how lucky we are here in the United States. And yet we just kind of poo-poo all over that. And kids in Guatemala are like, I got to get an education because it's the only way I'm going to get, a floor for my parents' home, or, heat in their home, or something like that.
There's a lady that was on Joe Rogan's show. She broke free, I think, from North Korea, from the prison camps there. And so she was able to get out and come to America. And she said that it was easier being in the camps than it was to sit with her own thoughts. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that, it truly is a first world problem that we're facing, is that the idea of mental illness is we're not in a true state of survival. So it almost becomes a manufactured state of survival.
Yeah.
And I wonder around that, is that because there's actual peace and joy found within that survival state, that we actually slow down and really pay attention to the good in our lives when we're in that state. I don't know. I go through my own version of that. I do my own work here, and I get curious about it. Maybe I'm throwing out an idea here that somebody can challenge, and I'd be open to that. But there's something about being in that survival state that makes you appreciate, or gets you into the space of appreciating what you do have, if you can see it, right?
You're right. And I mean, it's that old quote, and I'm gonna probably butcher it, about, hard men make easy times, easy times make soft men, kind of thing. So, if you're struggling, you're tougher. If you've got everything, this is great. I got food and a roof over my head. And I know people don't, I know there are people out there struggling, and I don't mean to make a huge blanket statement, but in a lot of ways, we have it. Even the people on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum have it so much better off than, a family in Guatemala that lives in a dirt hut. And
I lived in Bolivia for 2 years. I was a missionary down there. I lived in it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a true statement. I mean, our poverty here is probably their average life down there. It's not abnormal outside of the US. And so just having an appreciation for what we do have, recognizing the good in your world, becomes foundational to recognizing all of the resources that you do have around you. That's why people, when they come to this country from other worlds or other countries, other worlds, maybe they do, I don't know, but they come here and they see opportunity, because they recognize all of the abundance that we have, and they take advantage of it. Not take advantage in a negative way, but they use it for their benefit and the good of the world. And here we are, blinded and surrounded, right, by abundance, and we can't see it.
Yeah. And we don't want to work, and it's hard, and it's hot, and it's uncomfortable. Well, you know what? The only place you grow is in that uncomfortable state. If things are good and you're fat and happy and everything's great, you're not growing. You're just maintaining. Growth comes from doing those difficult things.
Stretching, right? Getting out there and tending. Yeah, and I don't mean to take us off on a tangent here, but a little bit is just recognizing where you are in your cycle, right? Recognizing what's around you, recognizing that your work isn't out here. Your work is in here. Mm-hmm. And then everything out here becomes an expression of that. And this is affected by who's around you and your environment. Yep. And so it's really important to pay attention to your environment. Because, and if it was as simple as that, is your environment affects who you are, you choose who you are from that environment. You can still dictate your values and your character, but everything in your world becomes an expression of who you're being, right?
Absolutely.
Huh. What other thoughts do you want to share? What have we missed?
Let me tell you a story.
Yes, I love it. Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of Westerns growing up. When I was younger, my mom and dad used to let me stay up late and watch, and your audience is probably going to be like, what are those shows? Bonanza and Gunsmoke. And
I remember those. Yes.
Yeah. I loved them. 1993, and you've probably seen that the movie Tombstone came out. It starred Val Kilmer, a man by the name of John Doc Holliday, and Kurt Russell's a man by the name of Wyatt Earp. Now, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp are two living, breathing human beings who walked on the face of the earth. They're not just made up characters for the movie. Right. Doc was called Doc because he was a dentist by trade, but pretty much Doc Holliday was a gunslinger and a card shark. And Wyatt Earp, most of his adult life, had been some form of a lawman. And somehow these two men from entirely opposite backgrounds come together and form this very close friendship. And at the end of the movie, Doc Holliday is dying of tuberculosis at a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which is about 3 hours from where I live. The real Doc Holliday died at that sanitarium, and he's buried in the Glenwood Springs Cemetery. And Wyatt, at this point in his life, is destitute. He has no money, he has no job, he has no prospects for a job. So every day he comes to play cards with Doc, and the two men pass the time that way. And in this almost last scene in the movie, they're talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, I was in love with my cousin when I was younger, but she joined a convent over the affair. But she's all that I ever wanted. And then he looks at Wyatt and he says, what about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt kind of nonchalantly says, I just want to lead a normal life. And Doc looks at him and says, there's no normal. There's just life, and get on with living yours. Guys, we're probably sitting back. There's probably people listening to us. They're like, you know what? When this happens, I'll have a normal life. When that happens, I'll have a successful life. When this occurs, I'll have a significant life. What I'd like to leave your listeners with is this. Don't wait. Don't wait for life to come to you. Get out there, find the reason you were put on the face of this earth. Use your unique gifts and talents and live that reason. Because if you do, at the end of your life, I'm going to promise you 2 things. Number 1, you're going to be a whole lot happier. And number 2, you're going to have a whole lot more peace in your heart.
Beautiful, man. Like that's a way to wrap up a show right there. Thank you for that. Ryan, do you have some additional thoughts you want to share?
Well, just quick, just because that was perfect. Like, I don't know how you follow that, but I should have gone first. But before you tell the story, let me go.
That's a way to wrap up a show. So let's keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
But going back to the uncommon life, it's interesting what we've become accustomed to, what's become common, and where truly that those things should be uncommon. The things that you've talked about should be common. And that's what we try to do, is we're trying to help people to see their giant potential. And as they wake up to that, now what can you do? And hey, you can watch Wake Up with Giants TV. You could follow to Old Tuck, you could follow Terry and his journey. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of giants out there. We've got tons of free content where it doesn't cost you a dang thing. There's so many people out there that have this information, that are teaching it. All you have to do is a quick little Google search, and boom, you can understand these principles and then start doing them. Start being that. Figure out what you want, and then go after it. And you can do or have anything you want. That's really our mantra, our saying as a giant. And you're worthy, you matter, and all of these things. I'm with Steve Hardison when I say that this is like a second church. It's something where you can hear these words from a man of character. You can hear it in your voice, Terry, and I appreciate you for being here, because this is going to help change people's lives, and I appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, man. For those that are watching, we always say this. I wear this X on my necklace here of you're right where you're supposed to be. You've got everything you need around you. It's the metaphorical you are here on the map. We'll start stepping from there because you've got everything you need around you already. And you're more okay than you think. That's a big thing. And when you're not, it's okay to not be okay. That's one thing we're trying to create here. So I just, Terry, I didn't know much about you before our show. I've appreciated our conversation. I know there's so much more in you. I hope you'll come back on our expert panels when we do those. We do those once a month, and share more of your wisdom with our audience. We'd love to have you do that. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up? And I promise this will be the last.
No, I don't have any more stories.
I'm not going again.
That's that one. So
yeah.
But thank you both for having me on. I always say that it's nice people like you that allow me to come on and have a conversation. And if that conversation makes a positive difference in somebody else's life, then for me, today has been a good day.
That's awesome. Thanks for being on with us. For those that are watching, we'll see you in the next episode. Go make it a giant day. Talk to you soon.
Love you too.